Today with some locals gameplay, I get to show off two Nami mirrors, opponents that really are people of my own heart, connoisseurs of the mill archetype if you will, but very different builds. One that is more traditional, one that is more character focused, but I do get to show off the power of Apis in both of the games. So I hope it can maybe convince you that at least if you're not a fan of Apis, that it's very powerful in the mirror, allowing you to look for your own peel-offs and your Kayas, everything else that you need in between. Enjoy. First game of the day, what I do is I start off with a Kaya ditching a Deathwing and an Impel down. It's pretty good. My opponent did win the die roll, so they choose to go second to get that extra card. That is correct here. They swing with a Nami, which I don't think is correct, so I peel over a rubber band, mill, draw a card, and I kind of let that go. No Kaya on their side. They did have a bit of a reaction to their hand, so I'm assuming maybe a couple of Zeffs, but I have double Kaya here, so I'm peeling through my deck pretty well. Impel down goes first, and I'm thinking about what to leave second. It's going to be a Deathwing. Probably not a card that I'm going to use too often, unless they do have the Zeff. So I'm going to Buggy and try and find other cards like Brick Fist. I am actually playing more copies of this. I'm trying to play a full 4 copies, but I can't really let go of the Nojikos just yet. So I put that into my hand, and that's kind of like already 5-6 cards out of my deck. The Buggy's going to be really good here, just as an incremental way to get these cards out. I know my opponent, they peel off here, is not playing Brick Fist at all, so that's gonna be a great way for me to get rid of that. Now I'm gonna peel off, which is gonna be a great way to tune through my deck here, and I'm going to Brick Fist and kind of return the Kaya to my hand. My opponent untaps the 6 Dawn, and I finally decide to show off my hand, which is great. They're going to Zeff, and this is exactly why I have the Nojiko. So draw a card here. I'm going to take that and then bounce it back to their hand. I just don't want to be like caught getting hit with that really powerful card here, and I'm going to Zeff, bounce a Nojiko back to my hand in case they play that again, mill over 2 cards. And this is kind of like like upcoming is going to be a pretty big set of turns for them. I am tapped out. They're going to 1,000 Worlds my Zeff back to the bottom, and with that they're going to play out a blocker, which kind of makes sense here. They're going to play out a Kaya, and that's just going to be something that I have to deal with ultimately. That blocker is going to stand in the way and also like slow me down by a turn or two. And they're going to use their last on, play out their Buggy, and kind of mill through, look through their stuff as well. Honestly, that blocker being, potentially milling them for 1 is very relevant in this mirror here. So they are teched pretty well against me. So I draw up to 9 Dawn here. I spend 1 playing that Kaya that I bounce, draw 2 cards, and I am going to discard both of the Spadas here. Not a big fan of those. And then what I'm going to do is, this is going to be a big turn. Watch this. So far I've drawn 1 card off my draw. Right? They want me to pull my Deathwings at the bottom. They're tracking that, so that's fine. 1 off the draw, 2 off the Kaya. Gonna bounce the Kaya, play the Kaya. That's 5 cards drawn. Then I see the Apis in there. I'm gonna discard 2 Mr. Ones. Then what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna play the Apis, and I gotta discard 2 cards here. I'm gonna discard the Mr. One and the Love Mellow. I'm gonna look at the top 5 cards, and then I'm going to draw a peel-off. That's 6 cards drawn, right? With the peel-off, I'm gonna cast 2. I'm going to draw 2 more. That's 8 cards drawn. Then I'm going to play a Kaya. That is 10 cards drawn this turn. Huge swing, by the way. Huge swing. 25% of my deck. And that is the thing I present to them. But I am tapped out, and they get a big swing of their own. Rush Usopp comes in. Doesn't give me a good trigger. I got a character off mine. They get to mill 7. So they get to return the swing there. I draw 10 cards thanks to the Apis swing, but they managed to mill 7 off the Usopp swing, so that's really good. Now, I make a bit of a mistake here. I should have swung into because they're tapped out, I should have swung into the Usopp here before bouncing it, but I just want to use up most of my Dawn here. So I'm going to pitch the Apis here, return the Kaya, play the Kaya, keep drawing 2. That's 4 more cards gone. We're actually keeping relative pace, but that Usopp swing it genuinely has me concerned. So like I was way far ahead here, and I definitely could have kept up a Dawn. I really did not need to play the Kaya there, but I just got way in my head. I'm like, yo, drawing 10 cards in 1 turn, absolutely insane. So they're gonna draw some cards, they're gonna mill some cards, they play out their Zeff, they're doing their thing on their side. Things are getting relatively scary. Both of our decks are getting kind of low, right? And really, look, I have a Zeff in my hand, I can keep going, but especially if they start swinging with that Zeff on their side, it can get kind of sticky. So both of us need to do some thinking and go deep into the think tank here. I have a Buggy, which I can play out. I have a Zeff, which I can make work as well. And for some reason, my camera is just jiggling. So we're going to count out the rest of the cards in my deck. I believe that counts to 12 or 13. And I have to think about, like, do I go for something? Like, they play out a Mihawk. Mihawk is essentially just like a continuous Kaya. Really built well against me. I think this Decklist has a kind of tough time against Sakazuki. I think a lot of the time boards like this can get removed pretty easily, but it's working against me here, so I can't complain. So I'm gonna kind of tap out the 5 Dawn here. I'm thinking, like, do I play this now? Do I play the Buggy first? But I think I kind of have to. So I'm gonna play that, ditch one of the Kayas, mill 2 cards, and then really have to think about, do I get back a Nojiko, bounce their Zeff? Do I get back to Kaya, keep drawing? I think I go for the Nojiko route because ultimately, like, because of how many cards that they have left in their deck, I think that they can go for a win. So I'm just going to return that to my hand, and I'm going to swing in and go for lead there. And I'm going to swing in for 8k. And really what I should have done is they play the 0 cost event here that takes them up to 8k, Gum Gum Rain. But really what I should have done is probably just swing out more. I was worried about, like, Rush Usopp. I mean, they discarded the Rush Usopp to there. I was worried about another Rush Usopp, but I honestly should have gone for it. I think if I did, I probably would have won this game. They might have had enough characters to counter out, but it might have forced out cards that generally I might not have been able to deal with otherwise. So it's good that, I don't know, I forced, like, the Gum Gum Raid out and the Usopp out as well, but they're gonna start swinging in. Let that, you know, they're gonna go attacking at my Zeff, and ultimately I'm thinking, like, do I save it? I think I can, because I think it's helpful as a pressure point next turn. They're gonna pass with 3 Dawn up. I'm gonna draw a card, and that's pretty good. I draw myself a Pilaf, draw myself a Zeff, and really what I'm thinking about is, do I go for it? I have 7 cards left. It's a really tough call to be able to go for it here, and my opponent doesn't have much either. So it's pretty much like, can they find a win? How far do I go? Can I win this game? And I'm counting all my stuff here. Like, how many Pilafs do I have? I'm really not going to be taking a hit here. I draw 2 more cards off a Pilaf there. And I'm thinking, like, honestly, I'm kind of regretting that move, because I might have been able to go deeper here. I look at the last 5 cards on my deck, and it's honestly not that great. There's no way I think I would have been able to go for a win if I had gone for the Zeff into Kaya line, because ultimately, like, you're going to see how this game pans out, but they genuinely did not need to go for a swing. And I was stuck with all those Pilafs there. I wish I had those Pilafs, like, early on in terms of triggers. It would have been nice, but they ended up having out more characters there. So in this case, they're going to play the Zeff. They're going to return the Kaya, mill 2. Now they're going to play the Kaya. So they've gone through 5 cards so far. They've drawn 1, played the Zeff, Kaya again. This is going to take them to their 4th and 5th card here. They're going to draw a discard, remembering that the active Mihawk draws them 2 cards. So can they draw 2 cards? There it is. So that's pretty much the GG there. I see it on board here, but I gotta let them see it as well. So the Kaya draws them that. They just need to attach 1 Dawn to the Mihawk, and they win off the real trigger. I can't even counter out. If I can counter out, I can actually win here because of what I have, but that's pretty much what I admit. So GG's there. Let's go to game number 2 and see if we can't bring back the other Nami matchup. Second Nami mirror, and this one's a bit more traditional. My opponent here says that they took the list off of a recent video I did, so shout out to that. Unfortunately, that video that I had, I wasn't big on Apis at the time, so I know that I should have the advantage generally in this mirror right now if I can find my Apis, which I do. I do have one in hand. So they play out a Kaya, I play out a Kaya. We're both doing our draw things. Drop the Spada. I'm going to play the Apis as well. Drop the kind of 2 effects there, because the Buggies can take cards out of my deck, which is important. I'm going to find my Pilafs, and I know a Pilaf is going to be at the bottom. So that's great. That's going to be a great way to rip that out later and just kind of find the way to a late game win when that matters. So next turn, I'm going to be able to go Buggy, thin my deck out even more. If they do swing at me, more than happy to take it, because ultimately those are triggers that are more valuable to me. So they're going to pay their 3 Dawn, they're going to peel off, and that's perfectly fine. I'm going to peel off on my side, I'm going to Buggy, and look at the top 5. I'm going to grab myself really a Mr. 1. That's really going to be what's better here instead of both of those, but I decide on the Impel down, because if they do attack with the Zeffs, I need the Impel down to just be able to, you know, kind of discard if I need to. If they go attack heavy, then I can also Impel down to remove cards from my hand. That's the idea. So usually you want to grab Mr. 1 there. I'm trying to be more careful because I still have the trauma of the first the Nami mirror that I had. Anyway, they go Buggy on their side. They're doing what we're doing. But fortunately enough, we have more Buggies on our side. Our board's actually getting relatively full. Not something that I'm used to. And I'm really clutching onto that Nojiko if it becomes a problem with the Zeff. So I go to 6 Dawn here. And really, it's just going to be about playing out the Buggy. So I just kind of spread out my field a little bit better here. Not something I'm used to, being like full board this way. And see the cards in my hand. Unfortunately, that Apis, I wish I could grab that Apis here. Grab the Mr. 1 in this case. No need for the Deathwink here. I think the character is probably much better. There is a world where, like, if I can just fill out my board, I might just start attacking if they tap out all their Dawn. I grab another Mr. 1. Zeffs and Kayas are going all the way to the bottom. It's kind of unfortunate, but it's the way the cookie crumbles. It means our bottom 12 cards are essentially set up here. But I do a very bad job of like remembering all that. This is like one of the last rounds of locals here, and my brain is fried. It's what it is, kind of full day of work, and then you're playing some Nami. Too much thinking. But regardless here, 2 Dawn, they Brick Fist, return their Kaya. They're drawing more cards. And really what this game comes down to is how many Kayas and Zeffs can both players see. And on average, I should be able to see more because of my Apises. So far I'm doing pretty well. I think I'm like numbers ahead in terms of how much I'm milling and drawing, but they are finding a lot of their Brick Fist, so they are able to kind of sculpt through pretty early. And that's going to be pretty good for them. They're able to go through their deck pretty well, but the Buggies for me are helping. You know, each Buggy I played so far has managed to get a card out. So each Buggy has been essentially 2 cards. You've drawn the Buggy, you play the Buggy, and you mill, and you just kind of thin out your deck that way. They're gonna Mr. 1 here, grab themselves an event. I go to 8 Dawn and play out another Kaya, ditch a Buggy, draw, discard, which is great. I found myself a Brick Fist. I tap out the 3 preemptively here, kind of play the Kaya, draw 2, discard 2. And really what I'm looking to do is just discard these Spadas. Spada's like one of my least favorite cards in this deck, and for very good reason. Honestly, like the card doesn't take you through the card, like your deck, the card just sets you up. You have to play it for its trigger. It's a draw 2 trigger, so whatever. I understand why we're playing it, but ultimately speaking here, it does end up slowing down. This game gets like kind of grindy just because of the fact that we are drawing dead. At least against the last Nami mirror, there was a lot of combat, there's a lot of interaction, there's a lot of like forced stuff that both of us had to do. Remember that draw 10 and the kind of mill 7 on my opponent's side. So at least here, opponent's deep in their think tank. What do they do? How do they move forward? They pass. I get up to 10 Dawn. I draw. And this is what it comes down to, finding my Zeffs, milling 2, both of those peel-offs going over. You see me bowing my head down like, oh my, that would have just sped things up so much. Anyway, draw 2, discard 2, milling over 2 of the peel-offs is actually painful. That's like really, really bad. And I don't want to be like, especially with all that Dawn up on their side, I'm not swinging. I'm not attacking, even with that active Zeff up. They know what they're doing, right? They know what they're doing in terms of like not tapping out, keeping up this type of interaction. Because if I swing in and they can counter out with Deathwings and Gavels, I'm giving them free Kayas, free Zeffs, right? Like they need to tap out for me to do anything here. And so I'm gonna kind of make all that happen, pass the turn. They're playing out Mr. 1, returning some events. They're going to pass here and just get some value that way. I find myself a Brick Fist, I Kaya, and draw 2, discard 2. I find myself a Zeff, which is great. I'm going to play out the Zeff here. And here I'm thinking like, well, I was thinking initially, do I actually just take that Zeff and bounce the Apis? But look at this. I discard a Kaya and a Pilaf, and so I return the Kaya and to my hand, keep going. I've essentially gone through all my Pilafs, and 3 of them have been milled. And I was thinking here like, okay, if I actually bounce the Apis, it would have been like net better because the Apis gets me an additional card. I would have been able to thin my hand out and I would have been able to like grab the peel off or the Kayas and then just set up those the peel off that I essentially milled over at the bottom. So ultimately in situations like this, I do have to remember that the Zeff bouncing the Apis is actually much better because Zeff mills 2, you bounce Apis, you get another card. That card is probably Kaya peel off, and then you play the Kaya peel off and you draw more cards. So that's something that I learned eventually here. So I'm going to bounce the Apis. I'm going to learn my lesson here. I'm going to play my Apis, thin out my hand here, discard those 2 cards, and then look at the top 5 for something. I pretty much like just hard whiff here. Like I have to grab the rubber band. There's no other options here, and I'm just going to rearrange that way. The Buggy actually grabs the Impel down the way I bottom it. So that's actually going to be a really good way for me to kind of grab 2 cards that way. But both of the interaction cards in my hand are absolute nightmares. So again, lesson learned, you play the Zeff in this board, bounce the Apis. Bounce the Apis. Just, you have enough cards you can go through. They're gonna kind of, again, be deep in the think tank. They're gonna draw their card. They're gonna pass. I'm gonna find another Apis. And again, cards like this just absolutely carrying the mirror match here. Both rubber bands go in, and my hand's going crazy right now. I find it's Zeff and a Kaya, if you didn't notice that. So Zeff is going to be the grab here. And I have 4 cards, and I'm thinking like, okay, I honestly should know these cards, but I'm forgetting them completely at that time. So play out the Zeff, and I know one of them is a Kaya at least. So I'm going to drop that Kaya. Zeff is going to mill 2 cards, and Zeff is going to bounce the Apis. Again, lesson learned, play the Apis, discard my last 2 cards, find that Kaya, and just speed things up. I'm going to rearrange a certain way. It doesn't really matter how I rearrange it because they're not really going to attack. I'm going to play out the Kaya and then lose the other Kaya, draw 2 cards, and just pass the turn. That's the game. I have 3 cards, and essentially they're deep in the think tank in terms of like, how do they win this game? I straight up just let them know the 3 cards that are left in there. They're thinking a lot, and I'm just like, look, you know what? Let's just speed things up for them. Let's just help them out. They're still like relatively new to the deck. So I'm just kind of helping them think through that. They asked to look at my trash at some point here, and I do hand it over. I'm like, yeah, take a look through, think about what I have left, because they're thinking like, should I attack with Nami? Should I mill myself over? They're just not getting as lucky. So I tell them like, hey, I got a Deathwink, I got an Impel down. There's stuff in there. And I'm not sure what the other 5 cards are. I definitely can deduce what the other 5 cards are. It's like some amount of Gavels, some amount of Deathwinks and stuff like that. But regardless here, the one thing I do lament on, my first world problem, is the fact that the Zeff, the one of Zeff that isn't an alt art, it's killing me. It's killing me, I know, but it's okay. I will find my last alt art Zeff somewhere in this great frozen north, and I'm explaining to them like, okay, again, as I was mentioning, here are my last 3 cards. Do you have, like, you just need to find a way to win in 3 turns, which is very possible. They could like top deck in a Pilaf and a Kaya and a Zeff. Like, they could very much top deck into all this stuff, and they could win the game from there. But I have to tell them like, hey, I'm not swinging, because I know their hand is stacked. You see that little stack on the top right hand corner? That's their hand. That's not their deck. That is their hand, right? And I know that hand is full of Gavels, rubber bands, like all that stuff. So I'm going to untap. I'm going to draw 1 card. It is the Deathwing. I'm going to pass the turn. That card is going to be absolutely useless. They're not swinging in. They're going to draw a pass. They draw nothing. 1 more draw. Can they do anything? It is something. They're going to Kaya. And they're going to draw 2. They're going to discard 2. And now I'm like, oh no. Here it is. Here's the W. They're going to play a Zeff. Ooh, they're going to play the Kaya. So they're going to mill 2. Then they're going to play the Kaya. They're going to draw 2. And ooh, this is getting close. They got 3 Dawn here, and I really hope they're forced to like play a Pilaf or something. They don't have much here. They play 1. They play out a Buggy, and I'm like, okay, good. This essentially means like, okay, they're not getting there. They grab 1 card, pass the turn. That's GG's, and that's the Nami mirror there. That's VLC Media Player just helped me replay these videos in faster form. But regardless, thank you for the games. That's the Nami mirror in a nutshell. 2 very different games. Like, comment, subscribe below if you want to see more. Let me know what type of matchups you want to see. I'll try and bring them to you.